Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. A little more pep in our step today versus last night. I haven't been that deflated after a Giants game in a while as I was last night, but
You
reality
were like
situation.
Brady's balls last night.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. The honest, realization of it is just this is where we're at. And as we go through today's offensive film, that's what this podcast is today, a breakdown of the All-22 coaches film, which Nick and I unfortunately had to watch, and it was grueling, disgusting, terrible. As we go through this, it's reminiscent of the Jake Fromm era, Nick, I would say, but in some ways, even more. What'd you say?
I don't think it's that bad, but it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, I was going to say it's even more depressing personally, because at least in that area, I knew they had a coordinator who was dead in the water, terrible coordinator, rigid, nothing going on there. Versus now where I'm like, these are supposed to be the coaches that I believe in can scheme offense. And I understand that. Me and you understand how hard it is to scheme offense, no matter who you are as a coach, if this is your situation with this offensive line and with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. But I still just had a little bit more expectations, I guess I should say, for an actual coaching staff with talent and, proven track record of good film from a schematic standpoint versus whatever was left with Joe Judge and Jason Garrett there. I know they fired Garrett, right? During that, I can't even remember. I'm pretty sure he was fired, but there was nothing going on. They weren't going to change the offense in the middle of the season. They were still using his playbook.
You don't remember the Freddie Kitchens years?
Yeah, Freddie Kitchens, the game. So, Nick, it's funny. I was thinking about this today. There might be a light at the end of this tunnel, and that light might be really bright, brighter than anything we've experienced as fans and analysts since 2011. And that light, if it is at its brightest, would be the Giants selecting one of these quarterbacks in the draft, that quarterback playing as well as CJ Stroud has early, and then continuing his success throughout his career, becoming a Burrow, Allen, Mahomes type. That's like the bright light that might be there at the end of the tunnel. That light is not guaranteed. And while that light will make all of this worth it in the end and then more, it is rough to go through these seasons as far as covering the team versus being a fan. When I was just a fan of this team, Nick, and these types of seasons happened, I was able to accept it fast and I was able to move forward with it because I'm not personally one of those people who's like, I got to fight hard every week and I need my team win. I'm one of those people who's always been about what's the long-term plan for this team? What's the long-term prognosis? How do we move toward my goal when my goal is to be competitive for a Super Bowl every year, not to be a team that can grind out wild card spots. So these seasons never bothered me then. But as someone who covers the team, Nick, and one of the things we do covering the team is watch the film of this team and break down the film. That's like the main thing and the biggest thing that we do. It makes the season a lot worse, and it almost makes me feel like that light at the tunnel may never be bright enough. And it is. Look, if they hit quarterback, it's fine, and it'll be even better. But it's just like, this is just crazy that we've done this now for only a few years, you and I. It's our fifth year. Or is it our sixth year? 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Our fifth year. And we've had two half seasons now. We're going to have a full half season now, and then the Fromm days where we're just watching film of just incompetent looking football from every standpoint. And yes, they tried to run more of an offense in the Fromm days, but the expectation is they should have been able to do something more. I looked at this tape, Nick, and then I sorted it by EPA, which I can do on True Media. The three highest EPA plays the Giants had on offense last year, the first two came with 51 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter, down 42-7 with all Cowboys backups in. And then the next one was middle of the game, but you know what it was? It was a freaking 19-yard scramble by the quarterback when he saw man. Like, that's the state of what we just watched on tape. And it becomes really frustrating. I tried to focus in on Thomas. I know you did. I tried to focus in on John Michael-Schmitz. I personally am giving every receiver on this roster a pass with this kind of quarterback play. I don't find anything valuable from what I saw with them, though I tried to watch their routes. But man, Nick, like I just wonder how you feel about where we're at now with this type of season. And we have another 8 games of film to watch like this, or 7, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's 7 games of film. And Dan, we've been talking about this now for the last couple of weeks. It's a lost season. We're turning the page of the draft, but we still have to do our due diligence and cover this and go through the film and try to find pieces of, I don't want to say inspiration. I think that's going a little bit overboard, but just like kernels of something to be proud of moving forward and something to build upon. And I think you found some of that with John Michael-Schmitz, who had a solid game, nothing too spectacular. Had one really nice rep I put on Twitter against Mozzie Smith. One of the things I love about John Michael-Schmitz is sometimes he doesn't necessarily have to be beat, but when he reacts to a move, how he's able to kind of unleash all of his strength with his subsequent move to counteract the counter move of the defender. I know that was kind of a mouthful there, but that's what happened on that Mozzie Smith play. Like he stepped, put all of his weight on his right foot, and then Mozzie Smith tried going left. How John Michael-Schmitz is able to explode off of that right foot and then just throw Mozzie Smith to the ground, a 330-pound, like big, strong defensive lineman, takes a lot of core strength, a lot of lower body strength, and a lot of explosiveness to do that. So I felt like John Michael-Schmitz on that one specific play did a good job. And one more thing, too, before we get into the film, and this will apply to the defensive podcast as well. My audio is going to suck a little bit. I got my Shure SM7B all packed up. I have a lot of my equipment packed up, so I'm just going off of the iMac right now. Not a great situation, or the MacBook, I should say, their microphone and their camera. So just for the audio, I do apologize. But all in all, man, the Cowboys defense didn't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before the pod. They didn't do anything. It's not like they looked at this like, and that's the interesting thing, Nick. It's like we've seen so many Wink Martindale game plans against some of these lesser experienced quarterbacks be so like, wow, look at all these things he was doing. The Cowboys saw Tommy DeVito on their schedule, and they're just like, F it, we don't need to do anything. Like, it's not like they had some like game plan to try to take him, and they did some things, obviously, but it's like you said, they didn't really reinvent the wheel. They ran what's been successful for them, knowing that no matter what they do, it's going to work.
And the Giants offense right now is so vanilla. Everything is quick game. It's West Coast passing concepts. But there's nothing wrong with that. But the shot plays that they have dialed off of play action, teams know exactly what the Giants are doing. Right. Oh, Jalen Hyatt's on the field. Oh, it's a play action pass. I'm a cornerback with no primary responsibility. I'm going to flash my eyes to the opposite side of the field where number 13 is, and I'm going to undercut that deep post route, because this is what the Giants do. They run deep Yankee concepts, and it's not reinventing the wheel. And I know that they're going to try to hit Jalen Hyatt, because Jalen Hyatt is going to have what they think is inside leverage with no help, because the middle of the field close safety is biting down on the deep horizontal route. Well, what I'm going to do as this cornerback on the outside is I'm going to sink underneath it. And that's exactly what happened with the interception with DaRon Bland. Great read. You could tell he saw that on film in the previous week where Tommy DeVito threw an interception, and the Raiders player, I think it was Amik Robertson, Amik Robertson intercepted it. The other player, Marcus Peters, worked underneath it. Amik Robertson ended up intercepting the pass because it was an underthrown ball. This one wasn't even really underthrown. It was just a very good play by the defense. The Giants aren't fooling anybody. And even when they try to get creative, and I'm not necessarily putting the coaching staff on blast, although they do deserve some blame. I think they are completely hamstrung. They have, basically handcuffs on while they're trying to call plays with their current quarterback situation. But they bring in this wildcat package, and in like their minds are like, "Ooh, we're gonna try something different." And the defenses don't give a shit. They tried it with the Packers play that they ran last week against the Raiders. Daniel Bellinger, look, I love that play. It was like a Philly special variation. It worked against Green Bay Packers. The Raiders laughed at it. They were like, "Okay, really? Yeah, we're going to cover the quarterback, and then we're going to cover Daniel Bellinger, and we're going to tackle." And it's just none of the trick plays, if you will. They're not tricking anybody at this point. No. And I can understand why, because the Giants aren't threatening anybody. If you're a defense, just call the defense. Yes, you have to have some protection on the backside. Call the defense from 10 yards to the line of scrimmage. Defend that.
Sure.
And you're good against this team, because the offense just can't do anything.
And that's been the case for defending the Giants dating back to the start of this year and dating back to the divisional round. But it's only more exaggerated now because, at least there was some respect for what Daniel Jones could do from a throwing standpoint. There's no respect for what Tommy DeVito can do from a passing standpoint. There just doesn't seem to be, or appear to be, any respect in that regard. And in general, I mean, people don't realize this as much, Nick, but there's also like mechanics behind this that no one thinks about. Like DeVito didn't have reps. Like this dude is like just getting reps with these guys. He has no rapport with any of these receivers. He doesn't really know the playbook that well. I'm sure he knows it, but like he doesn't know it like Daniel Jones knows it, right? He doesn't have the same checks that Daniel Jones had. Not that Daniel Jones did a great job making checks at the line of scrimmage anyway, to be completely honest, and understanding things pre-snap, but he did a better job than DeVito could do. He's had 5 years in the NFL with a shit ton of reps. This guy is just plucked into the mix from a practice squad until the Tyrod injury and the Jones injury, and now asked to operate an offense against NFL caliber defenses. and it's not great. And it looked a little better against the Raiders because the Raiders aren't the Cowboys defense, and they can, they play pretty soft in that second half, to be honest, Patrick Graham. The Cowboys weren't interested in that. The Cowboys with Jerry Jones have forever looked to embarrass the Giants. It was a 42-7 game, or 35. They put on another touchdown drive. Why? Why were they on the field there trying to score points? I don't know, but they were. I think they went for it on 4th and 1 or 2 with Cooper Rush in the game, if I'm not mistaken, just trying to pour it on and embarrass the Giants. And because of that, there wasn't much room for Tommy DeVito to operate as a passer. But I think we've put to bed the idea, Nick, with these games that Tommy DeVito has any sort of long-term upside as a QB2 for the Giants. I know there was some hope for that in the preseason. I hope people have learned a lesson about overestimating the preseason through all of our examples that we've had, and training camp through all of our examples that we had. Doesn't mean Nick and I won't cover it. We will continue to cover it and look into it, but we will take it with a grain of salt and understand that what really matters is the film of the regular season and postseason football games.
I know this season has been rough, gross, disgusting, and of course, disappointing. But I find solace through Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. I just pick 2 to 6 players, stat projections, select more or less on those projections, and I watch the winnings roll in. It's simple, easy, fun, and their flex play options allow you to win on, say, 2 out of 3 selections instead of all 3. I choose this option often because I'm a coward. You can be a coward too and capitalize on a higher probability to win. And now with basketball season here, you can select pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. Let's bank on that. Plus, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. One of the many reasons why they've earned the tagline, Daily Fantasy Sports Made Easy. So please go to prizepicks.com/banter and use code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/banter and use the code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Make Little Caesars, the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. There are few things better in the world than kicking back, watching some football, and biting into some delicious Little Caesars pizza. Order online during our Pizza pregame, 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day on Sunday. And get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Old World pepperoni, extra cheese, Italian sausage, olives, onions, pineapple if you're into that. Put it on half the pie, the entire pie. There are so many other options that I don't have time to name. Slap that on a round crust, a thin crust, a stuffed crust, a Detroit-style deep dish. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game.
Nick, you ever been in the spot where you just felt like, I've got a few hours to go. I'm going to this game. I'm buying tickets. I don't have the tickets yet. You're stressing. The anxiety is at an all-time high. And you're trying to figure out what the heck you can do to get to this game. That happened to me a few years ago when the Wisconsin Badgers made the Sweet 16 game in the Madison Square Garden. My dad, diehard Badgers fan, the reason I went to Wisconsin, the reason I am a Badgers fan, I needed to get him tickets for that game. It was his birthday. So I'm stressing. I don't know what to do. And then boom, I figure it out. I use the Game Time app. The Game Time app is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and anything near you. They got killer deals, last-minute tickets. You click open the app, and you're shocked to see that you can actually go to these games, have a good time, and not actually have to pay so much money that it breaks your bank account.
Stanley Cup Final Week 1 this past season. I used the Game Time app last second. It was actually past the time of puck drop. Went on the app. I was in Vegas, saw the Vegas Golden Knights defeat the Florida Panthers. And I also used the Game Time app to buy my entire family when they came out here to Phoenix to visit me to see Tom Segura's special, which is actually the same special Netflix used for their videotapings.
And I love it because you can find so much on the app. Like you get an actual image of the seat view, not like you're buying a seat with an obstructed view. It's an actual image. You know what you're getting. Lowest prices that I've seen by far, and that's their guarantee. You get event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They go all out here to make sure that this is a great experience for the user. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code BANTER. That's BANTER for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code BANTER, BANTER, for $20 off.
Yeah, 100%. It's always about the regular season, but you still pay attention to the preseason. It's just a completely different animal, as we all know. And the Cowboys, man, defensively, look, playing against this Giants offense, you just come out with 5-man fronts,
Right.
build the wall, come run through here, Saquon Barkley, attempt to. And the Giants, like we said, West Coast concepts, spacing concepts, trying to find the voids in a second level, at a second level where there's not as many defenders because they're aligning with these 5-man fronts. The Giants hit on a couple of those, and then there were also just defenders playing top down, really aggressively,
Right.
dropping the catch point on the Daniel Bellinger play, on a couple other ones as well. So it's just really hard for the Giants to maintain anything. And then from a blocking standpoint, there's just a lot of twists. It's not even like Dallas had to blitz, bro. They don't have to blitz. Let's just run it. And you know what? The Giants better at picking up some of those twists than in previous games. But what is that bar set at, if we're going to be honest? And that bar is at the core of the earth. It's so damn low. And that's dating back to since we've been doing this podcast when Will Hernandez was a guard here with the New York Giants. But Dallas just had to slant and twist, and they would find a way to penetrate. Tommy DeVito would try to use his legs. Tommy DeVito, credit to him for taking some of them hits, but again, he shouldn't be an NFL starter. He shouldn't be starting an NFL game. Something has gone completely wrong with your season if Tommy DeVito is out there preparing for a Dallas Cowboys game in Jerry World.
Sure. And we saw that. And, like you said, it was rough to watch just as a Giants analyst or fan, even just to see your team get just absolutely shit canned like that over and over. And you see it so much on the tape, right? Like you see it's so much worse somehow on the tape than the broadcast, because the broadcast, at least, dude, like I can tell you with certainty, and I don't care who hears this and judges me for it. I tuned out some of it. I watched it. I kept it on, but I was passively watching for this basically the whole second half yesterday. Who would blame me for that? I would hope no one. But when you watch the film, you're actively looking for things. You're trying to see, did this guy make this block? Did this guy make this catch? Did this guy run this route? And then you have to really watch it, and you can really see what you're saying. And I think you boiled it down perfectly. They've been shellacked into running this super basic offense because they can't trust DeVito from a mental processing standpoint to do anything else. And why should they, or why should he? He's a UDFA who wasn't getting any reps in the preseason. Like, don't be like, oh, look at what CG Stroud is running with Houston. He's a rookie. Yeah, the dude, they tailored the whole offense around him. No one on the Giants tailored their offense around Tommy DeVito. And they're sure they asked him, like, what concepts do you like to run? But it's like, there's only so much you can go. There's only so far you can go with that.
Dude, I love what Houston's doing with Stroud, because not even everything that you just said during the draft, right after they selected this dude, they're like, yo, you want Tank Dell? And he's like, yo, I want.
This is the guy I want. Look at the rapport they've built already, him and Tank Dell, who we love. Tank Dell is looking like going to be an absolute steal by the Texans. In the second round, did they get him in? Was it late 2 or was it
early 3rd or late 2?
Early 3, I think it was. Early 3.
It was right before the Giants got Hyatt.
Yeah, it was definitely before Hyatt. I definitely know that. Though I think the Giants would have taken Hyatt anyway over Tank Dell, but just based on pre-draft rumblings, who knows from that standpoint. But Tank Dell is certainly, as you described, Nick, more than just a slot receiver. That's
Giants definitely would have took Hyatt over Dell, because
I think they would have
not taken Hyatt in the second round.
In the second round, right? Yeah. So I think they had him ranked higher on their board for what they were looking for, and it doesn't it's not all that surprising considering they had Wan'Dale Robinson on the roster. Though I think Tank Dell's proving everyone that he's not It's just some guy you got to stick on the inside. You can play him on the outside. He can win basically everywhere. He's like we said during draft season, he was one of the only guys we watched that was, in my opinion, at least, this is not Nick's opinion, this is my opinion, that was consistent winner on all three levels, the short, the intermediate, and the vertical plane. And I didn't see too many receivers who could do that in this draft class. He was one of them, and he fell into the third round. Great job.
Wall might have been one of those guys where I was like an Eli Moore from a couple years ago. I was like,
yeah,
this is a Dan Schneider guy.
You said that. You said you literally, we can go back to the tape, go back to the podcast tape from March. You said before we got to him, you're like, you're going to love this guy. And you were right. I did love that kind of player. I did love Eli Moore, who hasn't been that good yet, but I think circumstances are not so great for him out there. But anyway, back to the Giants. It's hard. This all goes back to what we've said a lot in this podcast in the last 2 weeks, Nick. It's very hard for me to judge this coaching staff with the circumstances. It just is, and it will be. And that's, goes to a lot of things, but one of them being quarterbacks 95% of what works in the NFL and what doesn't work, in my opinion. And that's not Nick's opinion. It's just my opinion. So when you're stuck with this, it's very hard to make things look good.
I agree. Now, if we want to try to feel better, we can look across the city at our fellow Jet fans.
Right. Yeah.
Look, they spent the second overall pick on Zach Wilson. I get that he has more traits than Tommy DeVito. But is it crazy to at least think, are those offenses completely different if you were to just insert Tommy DeVito?
No, it's a fair point. Right.
Maybe they are a little, like Zach Wilson can do a little bit more than that. But if you're talking about a UDFA in the second overall pick just from a couple drafts ago, that is a colossal disaster. And you can say what you want about Daniel Jones, and we were critical of Daniel Jones on this podcast. I don't think the Giants should have took him 6 overall. I made that clear. Daniel Jones has a lot more to offer than a Zach Wilson.
For sure. Yeah. And Jones, that's something that's, with Wilson, I think I saw a stat yesterday. The Jets went 35, and this is still a running stat. Jets have gone 35 straight offensive possessions without a touchdown. And before that, you know what their touchdown was?
On offense, the Breece Hall play.
Breece Hall play, which was a shit dump down by the quarterback, wit Breece Hall just housed it against the Giants for 50. So before that, the Jets have gone over a month without stringing together a multiple play touchdown drive, because that was a 1-play touchdown drive dump off to Breece Hall. And that's basically the only thing that works for the Jets. Throw it wildly to Garrett Wilson in his vicinity and he'll catch it, or screens to Hall, which that's one thing though. I will say this just brings me back to the Giants. They should be figuring out a way to run screens, in my opinion.
Yes,
I know they that's the thing. Like when you're a shit offense like this and you have such a limitation at quarterback, like the Jets do and like the Giants do now with DeVito, the Jets are like smart. They're like, all right, we're at least calling like screens a lot, and they hit on like a screen a game. Breece Hall takes a big screen every single game, it feels like. Like the Giants should be trying to run screens. I know they haven't blocked them that well in the past few years, but like at this point, try to run some screens. Try to run shit like that. Like just running a simple West Coast offense like this with like spacing concepts and quick game with DeVito when the entire defense is sitting on all that shit is just not going to work. We've already seen them try to run quick game with Daniel Jones when the entire defense is sitting on everything. Jones is a much better player than Tommy DeVito, and he could get the ball out there a lot better, faster and more accurately. It can work. It worked at times with Jones against Ed Donatell's defense, but imagine it ever working with a DeVito. It's not going to. So I do kind of blame the coaches in that regard for not trying to. But even then, it's like, okay, we mix in some screens. Now what? That's what they'll say to you. Like, that's what they would say to me. Like, okay, we gave you your screens. It worked maybe once and it failed 3 times. Fine. That's still a net positive for us. Now what? We can't run a screen every play.
Yeah, you can't. And one thing about screens, and especially when the Giants run them, it's almost always a negative play.
It is. We have so many negative screens somehow.
And you're not really seeing that much pressure to begin with, because you're going to pressure Tommy DeVito, and there's so much eyes on 26. So if you're going to run that to Saquon Barkley, they're going to play it out well. I don't know why the Giants, from a blocking standpoint, are never in position to execute these screens. Like the timing is just always off. Like it's so frustrating when I watch these island games, Dan, and I see or I see another offense and they hit on a screen and the blocking is just perfect and the safeties get engulfed and there's like defensive backs getting blocked like way out of the screen. You're just like, how can't we ever figure that out? It's been 5 years on this podcast. I don't know if you and I have ever like, wow, you see that screen? That was crazy. Nope. I think like the best screen they had was on like a 3rd and 28 to Saquon Barkley that went for like 21 yards and they had to punt anything.
Yeah, I remember one from like Barkley's like 2018 and 29, like way back, but not in any recent years. It is wild that you're right. Like we watch these island games and people are executing screens. It is like it's the thing. It's like the timing is always the problem with the giant screens. Why is the timing so bad for us? I don't understand that. Like, why is the timing so much worse for the Giants than all these other teams? So
It's
odd.
almost like the defense knows the Giants are running it because
But they never call it. So how should they know?
I don't know. But it is also too, man. There's always just one player that screws up. It's like one player that screws up. It's like Andrew Thomas has his guy dialed in. The play side guard has his guy dialed in, and then the center will mess up or something like that. You know, it's wildly frustrating.
Yep. All right. Without further ado, let's get into some of these plays that we have on tape from this week. We'll break them down.
Yes, let's get into some of these plays. First one we're going to go over, quarter 1, 6:33, a 2nd and 9. So before we run the play, I want you to look at the Dallas Cowboys defensive front. We have Micah Parsons, who is off the line of scrimmage by about a yard or so, kind of in the A gap, but more so directly over the guard. Look at Mozzie Smith. Do you see anything that kind of stands out about Mozzie Smith? I'm looking at him right now if you're watching on YouTube. He's slightly off the line of scrimmage, right? Like you can kind of tell, right? He's slightly back. Well, watch what the Cowboys do here. And luckily this was a handoff, because if this was a pass, Tommy DeVito would have got absolutely murdered. And I like this little creative adjustment by Dan Quinn, because Mozzie Smith is aligned outside the ass of a 1 technique, and he is a 3 technique. And what Dan Quinn wanted to happen was this 1 technique to shoot directly through the A gap. And that's exactly what happened. And Mozzie Smith was going to loop right into the opposite A gap. Since Micah Parsons was chilling near the other opposite A gap, right? And you had 99 and 90, if it was a 6-man protection and it was a pass, there would have been 3 Giants offensive players who are going to be in pass protection, and there could have been a free run directly at Tommy DeVito. Luckily, this was a handoff. And then Mozzie Smith ends up making the play anyways. This is the play where Andrew Thomas ends up getting rolled up on. But I just thought it was interesting how Mozzie Smith was probably going to have like an easy sack with no one to take him except for maybe Saquon Barkley if this was a pass play on a 2nd and 9.
Yeah, it was really creative to watch. And I just hate seeing the end of that play with Andrew Thomas.
I don't want to.
Luckily, he was like fine from this. Apparently, he came back in the game, played through the game. Hopefully, he's fine, and there's no further damage that can be done from playing him this season. But yeah, I thought that was creative. That was an interesting breakdown.
Yeah, it was a little interesting play. And then now we have 1st and 10. Tommy DeVito. This is, I think, the 3rd drive, start of the 3rd drive, recognizing the blitz and throwing hot to the field side, just a field side flat. You can see DeVito quickly diagnose number 1 coming on the blitz, meaning that the safety would have to rotate down over Paris Campbell. You can see the space between Paris Campbell, the number 2 receiver, to the field, and that safety. And it's just a quick slant flat, convert, pick up about only 6 yards, but still, Tommy DeVito recognizing the blitz is coming, reacting, getting the football out of his hand accurately, which isn't something that he did on these field side throws. He missed I think 1 or 2 to Saquon Barkley that were really bad, like way behind him. Ball wasn't tipped, or at least it didn't appear to be tipped to me. So this one was a good play by the kid.
Yeah, it was a good example of ball placement maximizing yak too. Look at where that ball is thrown. This is what you want on these hot plays moving forward for whoever plays quarterback for the Giants. You want that ball to be placed there so the receiver can just turn right upfield. The Giants had a bunch of these throws earlier in the season that were misplaced. They're placed in bad spots that required the receivers to turn around fully, lose their momentum, and not be able to turn upfield. Now we're going to have the 4th and 2 play. This is the Tommy DeVito's dad in the stand saying, "That was your play call on 4th and 3." No. If you're going to do it, you got to get it right.
What? What'd he say?
That was your play call on 4th and tree. You know he's not pronouncing the H of the 3. You know the 3 came out of his mouth. On 4th and tree, you know he's saying tree, not 3. He's definitely a tree guy. Did you see him up in those stands? He was so North Jersey Italian.
You want to know what's funny about tree being referred to as 3? That's what you say on the radio in the military. When you're,
really?
Oh, yeah. You say tree.
Interesting.
You have a different emphasis for certain numbers because you want to be really correct and really direct when you're typing in coordinates to be bombed. But that's a conversation for another day. Here is a 4th and 2, 13:28 left. This was an RPO, and I don't think I realized this until I watched the tape. Now, I don't know if Tommy DeVito could have threw this ball, but Paris Campbell is open. So Paris Campbell motions from the double Y side to the field side, and then Tommy DeVito hikes it, and it's an RPO, and he's reading both of those guys who are coming down, man. Nobody takes Paris Campbell. Who actually takes him is on the opposite side of the field. But Tommy DeVito hands this football off, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because I don't know if he can get the football to Paris Campbell with 2 defenders respecting Tommy DeVito kind of in the passing lane. And if you look, They both stay put, meaning Saquon Barkley should have the opportunity to pick up those 2 yards to move the sticks or possibly get in the end zone. But the blocking kind of breaks down. And also, I think I have this from the end zone angle. If we watch, we'll see it's just a really good play by this Dallas defensive lineman. But you could see Paris Campbell come open here.
Yeah. And
Now,
the Dallas defender is not going to be able to get over the top, but it would definitely require a change in the arm slot from DeVito to throw that ball over those defenders.
And both of those defenders stayed too.
Yeah.
So that's your tell to hand the football off. But
Right.
watch number 96, who is like a 2-eye shade, a 2-eye shade. And you can see how he goes around. So almost takes himself out of the A gap, goes around Marcus McKethan. But that is such a difficult transition. McKethan leaves it a little bit early. He tries to transition that defensive lineman to Justin Pugh because Andrew Thomas isn't in the game at this point. And you can see how Justin Pugh never really fully got his hands on this defensive lineman. The defensive lineman just crashed down the line of scrimmage. And you also had DeMarcus Lawrence from the backside just tossed Tyree Phillips. Oh, my God, that's just rough, man. I'm hoping his feet got tripped up. His feet did get tripped up, but it doesn't look good on the tape. It does not look good. But it was an RPO call. It wasn't just a bland zone read for what it's worth.
I like to say this, too, because I'm just to pause for a second and talk a little bit about the Giants overall. I tried this game from my standpoint when watching the offensive film, Nick. My only real focus was on the offensive line. Again, I've made mention of this in the past, but I am a personal believer that I can't judge these receivers based on any of the tape with Tommy DeVito. I just don't find it to be real offense, and I don't really judge them if they're not producing. But the O-line is something I will always be looking at, and I actually felt like Tyree Phillips had a pretty solid game, Nick. Wanted to get your take on that.
I don't know if I would say he had a solid game.
Okay.
I don't know if the offensive line in general had a solid game.
They didn't.
I think actually I was going to highlight this play by John Michael-Schmitz. I think Ben Bredesen probably had the worst game if I had to highlight an offensive lineman. I didn't love the right side of the line though.
Okay. All right.
What was your take, Brady?
On who?
On Bredesen.
Oh, on Bredesen. I definitely thought he had one of his worst games as well. I wasn't high on him. I guess I had in my notes that I thought John Michael-Schmitz had some good plays here. Thomas was great when he was in the game. That's just who he is, even playing hurt. But I actually thought that Phillips Tyree Phillips had an okay game. I thought specifically as a run blocker, he made some good plays there. But
I could be remembering like one-offs of bad pass blocking.
Oh, reps. He had some really bad reps too.
Yeah. That's probably what I'm ascribing to his entire game, just because I'm not focusing in on Tyree Phillips for like every single.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't think he was bad as a run blocker. I'm more so referring to pass blocking, as I tend to do often with the offensive lineman because it's so damn valuable. And
we all default to that, and I think that's fair.
Now watch this block by John Michael-Schmitz. This is the same 4th and 2 play. He uproots 97. I get it's a double team. Ben Bredesen engages 97 first, but to me, it seems like the power really comes from when 61 makes contact with that inside hip of 97. 97 goes flying. And then there's one thing we love about John Michael-Schmitz, how he transitions, man. He transitions and then he puts 33 down on the ground as well. Very good rep and also just very smooth with his hips and his location ability. Like, I'm really glad the Giants have this kid. I wish the Giants were more exciting so we could, really break him down with some life instead of being like, oh, this is a good block. But John Michael-Schmitz, we're talking about it. Here's a 2nd and 2. This is that 19-yard run that you were just bringing up about 15 minutes ago by Tommy DeVito. This is that play that I was mentioning. Watch how he just transitions all of his weight on the left foot and then just buries Mazi Smith to open up this lane.
Biggest play of the game for the Giants, right?
I want to say it was, yes. No. Saquon Barkley had a couple explosive runs. But watch the framing by John Michael-Schmitz. So Mazi Smith opens up, moves to his right. John Michael-Schmitz right in front of him. And then Mazi Smith attempts to work back through the inside of John Michael-Schmitz. And he uses a power move that gets John Michael-Schmitz one leg up in the air. Like, hey, I have the advantage right now if I'm the defender. That's what I'm thinking, right? But then John Michael-Schmitz is able to reset that foot and then just follow through with such strength and power. So that's one of the things that I absolutely loved about watching JMS in this game.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right, now we're just going to see some really good play side blocking by Andrew Thomas and Daniel Bellinger, 2 really good run blockers. This is a 21-yard rush by Saquon Barkley, and they're going to do it to Micah Parsons. It's just smooth transition right there to allow Saquon Barkley to have a lane to rush up the sidelines. And you could see how we used to call this a tip block, tight end and tackle. So tight end blocks, outside shoulder. Andrew Thomas makes contact. And you can see how Daniel Bellinger just smoothly transitions. He gets his eyes on 33, as you can see right here. And then he comes off and he allows Andrew Thomas to assume the entire block of Micah Parsons. And you can see how Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive players in the league, he can't separate from Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas just has him right in his grasp. Saquon Barkley runs right past him. Daniel Bellinger gets up to 33, picks him, which also picks a pursuing defender, allowing Saquon to run for 21 yards. One of the better plays by the Giants offense.
Yeah, that was one of the moments in this game where you felt like, okay, this is something they practiced and they executed it perfectly. And you have Thomas, that's going to be a player of the future. You have Bellinger, that's going to be a player of the future. This is a good looking play for the Giants.
We don't know who the running back will be, but if it's Saquon, bless it. Good blocking too by I really wanted to highlight this. I think that's Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah.
Too. Wan'Dale Robinson, man, he's small, but he's feisty out there as a blocker. That's something I've noticed kind of all season a little bit. I'm like, man, he's really throwing his little body around there, dude. And he's that props to him, dude.
It's a physical player.
Physical player. Now here's the touchdown to Lawrence Cager. I like this play call. I think it's smart in a reduced area where you have just a lot of Cowboys bodies. It's on about the 10-yard line. Cager's going to motion from outside the numbers to right behind Daniel Bellinger, and the snap is going to happen. And the motion is going to bring Stephon Gilmore from, the bottom of the numbers to slightly inside the top of the numbers. And he's going to back off as he reads the number 2's release, which is Daniel Bellinger, and nobody takes Lawrence Cager. And Lawrence Cager just gets into the flat. Look, you run a lot of cover 3, you run a lot of cover 4 and quarters and stuff like that. Flats are going to be open, and the Giants were able to find some space. It was really rare for their first points of the game.
Yeah, again, good ball placement here from Tommy DeVito to get it on the outside shoulder for Cager so he can just transition right upfield. Anywhere else, if that ball's thrown, this won't be a touchdown.
You know what I was thinking too as I watched Lawrence Cager score this touchdown? I was like, bro, think about how many Giants receivers don't have touchdowns this year.
I know.
Darius Slayton doesn't have a touchdown, right?
No.
Darius Slayton doesn't have one. I know Wan'Dale scored one last week. It's just
Paris Campbell
doesn't have one. It's just like
Hodgins, who had a bunch last year.
Hodgins had one against Arizona.
Oh yeah, he did catch one against Zone. I remember that now. Yep.
And now we got Sterling Shepard, who has one, which we'll go over here because holy crap, that release was beautiful. I know you must have loved that release.
Of course.
Sterling Shepard. But first, before we get into that, quarter 3, 4:40 left, a 1st and 5 after a offsides penalty. This is the Deron Bland interception from cover 4. And you can just see Bland, once he sees it's a cross, I'm just going to sink underneath the deep post. I know exactly what's happening. Let me flip my eyes around, and I'm going to intercept this pass. And that's exactly what happened. It's predictable at this point when the Giants do attempt to take these under center single back shots. When they are,
and you guys have watched the tape with us so much, right? Like, how many times have you seen this exact 2-man route combo? A lot.
Quite often.
And it's like, is that on the coaching? I don't know. It's just a question worth asking.
Yeah, and this ball too, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. It's a lot better than the one last week, which was
definitely better than the one last week.
Yeah, this one at least
better than the one Cooper rushed through for an interception too.
Oh yeah, but Bland is right there. I think that's Bland at least. Yeah.
Bland. Imagine if you had to watch this as your quarterback every game.
No, yeah, I'd be a Jet fan.
Hey, you're right.
All right. Here we go. Here is my last play that we'll be going over. This is the touchdown to Sterling Shepard with 4 seconds left in the game. You can see the bottom of your screen, Sterling Shepard right here. Just an insane release. Hezzy. Oh, that's Sterling Shepard right there, man. He still has it. It's so odd, man. This has been such a weird season, and I love Sterling Shepard. I know you love Sterling Shepard, but why is he on the roster? If you're trying to compete, he wasn't earning any snaps basically throughout this entire season. He doesn't play special teams.
Right.
It's really just hey, you're the longest tenured Giant. You're a good locker room presence. Here's a roster spot. And it's just, with all the other roster gymnastics the Giants have had to do this season, it just seems, I get it from the locker room standpoint, but I don't know, man. It seems somewhat like a luxury, no?
It definitely seems like a luxury, and I think they believed before the season they could afford to carry a luxury because they were trending in the right direction. They had won that playoff game, and you could use someone like that who could help, the locker room stay as high as it was on itself. But as we've learned through watching football through the years and false positives like the Joe Judge 2020 back end of the season, where people were like, oh my God, we're building culture. This is amazing. And then they blew it in 2021. The only way to keep a good culture is by winning football games. There is no other option. That's it. That is the number 1. That is number 2. That is number 3, number 4, number 5. This culture was amazing last year for the Giants, Nick. You know it. I know it. We celebrated it. It was obvious. It was palpable. This same exact group is now a quote unquote bad culture team this year. I wonder why. Because they're not winning this year. So
yeah, unfortunately. But if Sterling Shepard was able to run routes like this, which I'm sure he is.
I think he is. That's the funny part. Like, I still think if he got routes and he had competent quarterback play, he could be productive. Look at that freaking route.
It's just a crazy release, man. He stays square to this defensive back.
Square.
He gets this defensive back to shift inside, and look how much space at the break is there for Sterling Shepard. This is in the red zone, man. There's not a lot of space to operate, as New York Giant fans know. And you can see he's wide open. This, like, I could have threw a touchdown pass.
He creates 3 yards of separation almost on a red zone route. Like, that's just insane.
And it was a great route from Sterling Shepard. I love Sterling Shepard. It's just, I don't know, man. You think about
the hot take from Turchin from years ago, right? I've told you that, right?
Yeah, of course.
And he believed he was a better route runner than Odell Beckham.
I don't think it's that hot though either.
I think any Giants fan who heard that or hears that now would think it was an insane thing to say.
Yeah, I don't know though, man, because there's a difference between route running and
being a good receiver. Yeah, exactly. It didn't make him a better receiver than Odell Beckham at any point in his career. Just better route run.
Nah, I feel you.
All right, so that's all the plays we have for today, Nick. And for those listening and watching on YouTube, is there anything else you wanted to say about this offense before we bury the tape like the Giants certainly did?
Yeah.
We're not doing superlatives for today, by the way, for the offense. Yeah, we'll do some on defense, but there's just, we're not going to find a best throw. We're not going to find you could look for routes, but it's just, this is not a superlatives kind of podcast for this game.
No, unfortunately, no. I'm just waiting to turn the page to next season, as every Giant fan is. Yeah. And hopefully, what I hope to see, if we want to have a little conversation here, is just some more from Ben Bredeson. This was a bad game. I want to know if Ben Bredeson's going to be, I don't want to say a long-term fixture, but how long is he going to be here? Is he going to be here for next year and the year after that? That's something that I would like to know, specifically more so for the year after that, obviously. And then John Michael-Schmitz. I want to keep seeing progression. I think this was a step in the right direction. Wasn't a perfect game, but he was probably the second best offensive lineman in my opinion.
He was.
Other than Andrew Thomas. And I don't know what to expect from the UNC guys like Marcus McKethan and obviously Josh Azudu is out on IR right now. So I'm still watching this offensive line very intently.
I think that's the saddest part too about this season, Nick. It's like a lot of the guys who we need to evaluate to see how they're going to be moving forward in this final stretch of like dead games are injured. Azudu, Neal. Yeah. Like, this is just annoying as hell to not only, like, I don't remember that many injuries of key guys we were trying to evaluate in the Joe Judge 2021 but maybe there were. That research said so few guys anyway because of Gettleman's drafts. But
I'll say this too, dude, and I want to get your opinion on this. It must have been so frustrating being like Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton, and I could see why, because like they were, like, I was watching, obviously the whole entire game, but I'm sitting there, it's the fourth quarter, Giants are getting blown out, and I'm seeing these guys explode off the line. Fire off the line. They have leverage. They're open, kind of, but the ball doesn't go to them. And I'm not even looking at Tommy DeVito being like, "Oh, you suck. It's your fault." It's not. It's just like the state of everything. But like, imagine how frustrating that is to be a wide receiver and you're just running every single route at 100%, and you just know the football more than likely is not going to be
right. Exactly. That's crazy. That's why I don't judge these receivers based on anything I see on tape. There's nothing to negatively judge them on, but it just from a, overall human being standpoint, it does sound, it would be like, and just think of like one player specifically, Jalen Hyatt, for example, right? Yeah. Who unfortunately left this game with a concussion, which is just another thing that's frustrating because we were looking to evaluate him, though we can't really evaluate him with Tommy DeVito quarterback anyway. But you go from the Josh Heupel offense in a transition of one fall to the next fall. You're going from the Josh Heupel offense where every play the ball could be coming to you, no matter what route you're running, and you're only running a few routes when he was with Tennessee, and they were all potentially explosive plays. And then you go to this where you're just running these routes knowing the ball's almost definitely, not even probably, almost definitely not coming your way.
Yeah, it's wildly frustrating. I'm not sure if the background noise of my HVAC is covered.
I didn't hear that. No, you're good.
No, man, that's one thing that definitely stood out to me in the second half was how hard they were still exploding off the line of scrimmage. And it's like maybe I don't think the locker room is lost right now, but I think the questions that the media is asking, it's very fair. It's very fair with all the noise that have kind of surrounded the Giants. We didn't see any of that last year. We thought we were beyond that, and that was more of a Joe Judge era type thing. But now, man, Brian Dable was so terse in his post game. You could tell he just did not want to be there, and who the hell could blame him? But at this point, man, you got to face the New York media, and they're loud, bro.
Yeah. This is what's going to happen now for these next 7 weeks. We all know the playbook by now. We've been through this so many times as fans. Like, there's nothing to write about for these guys covering the team on the beat. There's nothing to talk about with the games. They're forced to try to, drive some kind of interest. So, like, for us, we like to talk about the draft and we try to find some tape stuff. But their job is different than ours. We are analysts and we are running a podcast, so we don't have to report on the team from a beat standpoint. I'm thankful for that, Nick, by the way. As I've told you over the years, my dream originally when I was a kid, little Dan Schneider, was to be a beat reporter for the Giants. Thank God I didn't go that direction, because that job looks just not up my alley whatsoever. I mean, I would have taken it in a different spin and approach, and I would have made it X's and O's based and film based, like I see some of the beat writers doing. But I would hate to do like all the other stuff where you have to like do these like stories and like just shit that like I don't care about. Like, I don't watch the Giants to care if Dexter Lawrence is doing a media session after the game. And I'm not taking a shot at Art Stapleton, by the way. If you're not listening, but if you were, Art, you would know that me and you have gone way back. I've been on your podcast. I have total respect for you and what you do. And I didn't even see any of that stuff anyway. I just saw your couple tweets you had on it. But my point being, like, I just don't give a flying F if these guys are talking to me after games like that. I wouldn't cover the team like that. And I'm happy that we don't have to do it like that, Nick, because what would we do as beat reporters for these next 7 weeks where these are meaningless football games? And the only place you could go is really negative, and then they go negative, or they want to go negative. And you see Pat Leonard had his report yesterday about it's going to be the Giants are getting fired. Jonathan Jones for CBS Sports, who has a much better track record than Pat Leonard, said the opposite. And he said they're both safe. But he also said the Giants aren't going to hesitate to take a quarterback, which I thought was very interesting.
And that shouldn't surprise anybody. John Mara, begrudgingly fired Joe Judge. He did not want to fire Joe Judge. And it was time. Joe Judge, after the Chicago loss, went on like a 6-minute tirade. And everyone's like, dude, are you still talking?
The media unraveled him. The media is such savages. Like, it's not even just the media, though. It's the fan base, too. The fan base is wild on Giants Twitter, just broken and wild in so many ways.
Back to that 2021 season, man. And I'm just like, we watched it all happen. We're like, yeah, that was a little odd that we were covering this. We're like, that was a weird press conference right there. I wonder what's going to happen. And then the next week, Jake Fromm is taking knees, and we're just like, and I remember I was like, bro, I kind of get it. I don't think you do it, but you're just like, this guy can't complete a pass right now. You're quitting on your guys by doing this. But he's like, threw a pick 6 last week against Chicago. He's like, we can't do this. And I'm just like, the message that sends, oh God, man. Then the players aren't going to play for you after that. And by that time, the locker room was so lost. And that's, if I'm Brian Dable, just got to ensure that doesn't happen, as we've said in the last several podcasts.
You do have to ensure that. It was different for me at that time because I was so out on Judge for a while at that point. And I think it has come out since that everybody felt like they were walking on eggshells in that locker room, afraid 100%. To make the smallest mistake. I don't think that's the case with Dable, but I do know that any locker room like that never works besides the one, and that's the Bill Belichick time. It's literally the only guy who's ever been able to pull that off in a long time. I'm sure, Parcells had similar type locker rooms at the time, but again, and he was able to pull it off. But these are also very different times. That was the 80s and the late 80s and the 90s. Like, human beings were just different. Kids were different. There wasn't social media, and it was way more of a coaches league than a players league back then. Now it's way more of a players league. So that type of bullshit just didn't work. And I knew it would never work with Judge because of that. Personally, the minute the lapsed shit started happening, I know some Giants fans again celebrated it, but it was never my cup of tea. But with Dable, it's like, you know what's going to happen now, Nick. He's going to have to try his best not to have that kind of Joe Judge rant, because if he does, that's when these people can really pounce on him, really get after him, and really, rev it up.
I think Dable's media savvy, though. He seems to be media savvy, more media savvy maybe even than Joe Schoen. And I don't think Joe Schoen is bad with the media by any means, but I think what we saw throughout this offseason, I think Joe Schoen maybe showed more in his press conferences and when he talked to the media and said some things that I'm like, it's not bad that he's saying this, but you're giving away more than maybe you have to. Is that fair? Or Dable doesn't really say shit.
Dable says nothing. Yeah, nothing of interest.
Don't say anything.
Yeah, Kafka and Dable give you nothing. Wink will give you an occasional, interesting point. But those two aren't given much. But probably for the best. But it's going to be an interesting final 7 games because obviously with DeVito, they're not competitive now. They're probably going to turn back to Tyrod Taylor. And then, short-term wise, Nick, me and you get a little boost of what's the term? Serotonin? Is that what it is? When the happiness Is that
Dopamine?
Dopamine, not serotonin. What is serotonin?
It's like judges your moods. That's another
One of these. So I wasn't too far off, but we'll get an immediate boost to dopamine because at least the film will be more passable and we can start to evaluate players like Hyatt again. But also it could be a obvious blow to the future of this franchise if Tyrod comes back and wins a football game or two for the Giants. So it's like that juggling. So it's like we're in a lose-lose situation for the most part the rest of the year. But we'll see how we'll see how Brian Dable deals with it.
That's the second time we slipped up and said Judge.
Yeah, we were just talking about this one.
Yeah, no, but still, man, it's not good for Brian Dable.
Yeah. All right, that's all we have for today in the offensive film breakdown, and then the last 5 minutes of just Giants talk. More of Giants talk coming your way. We're gonna have a defensive film breakdown coming this week. Thank you for tuning in, or coming so shortly, I should say. Thank you for tuning in to the Big Blue Banter podcast. Keep it locked and loaded, even in a season like this. Please show up when we do lives on YouTube. Mailbags will be calling for questions. Rate and review on iTunes if you haven't already. Like and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. We do really appreciate how every time we do go live, it seems like people are donating to us literally every time. Some repeat donators as well. Really appreciate that. We'll have something different set up for the offseason as far as that goes, because I know a lot of you don't have access to or use YouTube. And to be quite frank, this isn't the best setup for us going through YouTube. So we'll have something interesting that I'm cooking up in my head, and Nick and I will discuss and figure out for the offseason, because it's going to be a big offseason. It's going to probably be even more content than we have been giving, just because there's a lot more to talk about when you're talking quarterbacks. There's just so we can probably do literally game by game type podcast breaking down tape on a quarterback. That's how much, that's if we wanted to. That's the type of, depth that it requires to cover that position. And even then, Nick and I are not going to have all the information. That's the scary part, Nick. We're not really going to have all the information on these guys. We don't know anything about their personalities or their ability in the, to read them, to set up the board and to process film. So it is what it is on that front. But anyway, thanks again. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.